A little-known magazine called Scientific American calls for federal homeschooling regulations, and the Congress is looking at changing up the requirements for the draft. The question becomes, should women be constricted into the draft? This is a robust conversation, a discussion that's happening among political elites and our intellectual elites in the country. Lots of things going on. Today is Mailbox Monday, and I'm going to answer listener questions. This is the Heidi St. John Podcast. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. Lots of stuff happening in the news, so I'm just going to get right to it. First of all, thank you guys for coming out so much to the Right to Life March that was happening in Washington, D.C. this weekend. We worked with Abby Johnson and Sidewalk Advocates for Life and Students for Life America. Really wonderful things happening in the pro-life movement, and I am thrilled to see the younger generation, the rising generation, really taking up the cause for life in this country. Human life is precious, and unborn life is precious, and we should do everything we can to defend it. And I was honored to be able to speak there, and I love to see the energy that is behind the pro-life movement. I think this is an argument that we will win, and I think we're going to win it in my lifetime. And so it's just, you guys, life is worth fighting for. Life is worth defending. And so I was just thrilled and honored to be encouraging a bunch of people who are at the front lines of the fight for life in the United States. It's just always an honor to partner with men and women who stand in defense of the unborn. So that was exciting. Today is Mailbox Monday, and I want to just jump into some listener questions. Lots of really interesting things happening that I think we can sort of miss because there's so much going on in the news. There's so much noise out there. But I thought this is interesting. Amy in Minnesota wrote in to say, Heidi, do I need to be concerned that a draft will be implemented soon? Our oldest is almost 18, and I'm finding myself giving into the fear that he'll be drafted to fight an unjust war for wicked people. I think the fear is understandable because we got so many wicked people in leadership right now dragging us into wars we have no business being there. Ukraine comes to mind, but whatever. But social media has really been pushing this narrative out there that we have reinstated the draft. That is false. That's not happening right now. And it's important to note that there is already a mandatory registration for young men ages 18, I think it is, to 26 with the selective service system. So that's already in place. The U.S. House of Representatives last Friday passed a measure within the National Defense Authorization Act. So that's the NDAA, that would automatically enroll men 18 to 26 with the selective service system. Remember, they're already required. What they're asking to do is that it become automatic. So they want to go into the records that they have of every citizen in the United States through the census and through your Social Security cards and all that, and just automatically register you instead of having it be something that you're required to do on your own. So that's what they're trying to do. The federal agency documents all people registered for selective service mandatorily, and the agency would provide that information to the Defense Department in case of a draft, although there isn't one that's currently in place. It's really important to note that a draft hasn't been instituted in this country since 1973, and enlisting in the military is voluntary. Men 18 to 25 are already required to register for selective service. As the law is written now, anyone who is required to register and fails to do so could be charged with a felony punishable by as many as 5 years in prison and up to a fine of nearly $250,000. And so what they're trying to do is make any potential future military draft fair, saving money in education and advertising campaigns, and just make it automatic. It's also worth noting that 2024 has the smallest active duty force since 1940. And findings from a Pew Research Center are suggesting that only 23% of young people qualify for the military, and a majority of Americans aged 18 to 29 have a negative view of the armed forces altogether. And I mean, obviously, the military is woke now. We're seeing drag queens in the military. They were forcing really good men and women to be vaccinated against their will, kicking many of them out of the military for not complying. I'm not a super fan of what's going on in the military, but again, they're reflecting the commander-in-chief, which unfortunately for everyone in the country right now is Joe Biden. But the NDAA So as the National Defense Authorization Act, which is what we're talking about, inside of that proposed legislation, which did pass the Congress, it also included the largest ever military pay raise in history, with a 19.5% increase for junior enlisted troops and a 4.5% increase for others. It also included funding for 2 new Virginia-class submarines and the establishment of a drone force within the U.S. Army, among other provisions. It passed the House 217 to 199, but I don't think the Senate is going to take it up. The Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, I'm just not going to say it. My mama always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, so I won't comment on him, blasted the bill on Friday over the inclusion of amendments inside the NDAA, which passed the Congress, which would curb funding for the murder of the unborn. It would curb funding for transgender medical care and diversity efforts. In other words, they want to get rid of DEI in the military. But Chuck Schumer's like, no, 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 murder all the unborn babies, chop off your body parts, and let the federal government pay for it. So Schumer is probably not going to let that be heard on the floor of the Senate. And this is interesting. I'm going to quote him. Unsurprisingly, I don't actually have his voice down, but this is what he said. Unsurprisingly, the legislation coming out of the House today is loaded with anti-LGBTQ, anti-choice, anti-environment, and other divisive amendments guaranteed not to pass the Senate. As we move forward with this year's NDAA process, both sides will have to work together to pass bipartisan legislation that honors and respects all who serve in defense of our nation, and also allows them to murder their unborn children. I mean, I just threw that in for fun. Okay. So Chuck Schumer is not going to allow this thing to go to the floor of the Senate. So Amy, to answer your question, I don't think this is something that you need to be concerned about right now. Even if it did pass, all they're really doing is saying that instead of requiring you to go and sign up for the selective service, it would just happen automatically if your children are between the ages of 18 and 26. So the draft is not happening right now, but obviously they're trying to make changes to the law to make that automatic. Here is what I think is more important, and I think this is a bigger issue and we need to talk about it, and that is the conscription of women into the military. And this is, we can blame feminism for this, right? Anything men can do, we can do better. Like, send the women to the front line. But this is going to say a lot about how we feel about women and children in the culture right now and where we are headed in the future. And I think that there's a growing centrist consensus, certainly among the left in this country and among hawkish conservatives, on expanding the selective service to include women. Naturally, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, is fighting to have women drafted into the military, and they're arguing, and they're going to make a good case for it. And frankly, I don't know how we're going to argue against it. They're arguing that the selective service is an example of overt sex discrimination. Yeah, you right. Because sending women to the front lines of any type of military exercise is just suicide. It's suicide for the woman. It is suicide for the men who are fighting next to her. It's just a bad idea all the way around. But they're going to say, hey, we need equality. We need equality. And this is depriving of the rights of women to be conscripted into the military. And this to me is very, very troubling. And I saw Al Mohler talk about it the other day, and I think I think this is where we're going. But he listed an opinion piece, Al Mohler did, when he tweeted about this last week, talking about the National Defense Authorization Act. And he said a lot of the bill obviously is focused on the controversial culture war items that I just explained to you, that, Chuck Schumer was just like, oh, no. We want the federal government to pay for our military-aged men to chop off their body part that actually shows that they're a man and turn them into a woman. And so we're not gonna entertain your NDAA Authorization Act unless you make sure that the citizens of the United States can pay for that. It's disgusting, whatever. But I think this is more important. And there hasn't been a lot of coverage on it. And I would like to talk about it at the podcast because obviously I'm a woman with daughters who would fall into this category. And they're not talking about it. But there is a little notice provision that would amend the Military Selective Service Act to, quote, require the registration of women for selective service, according to an executive summary released by the Senate Armed Services Committee. If enacted, And if the United States ever reinstates the draft, women could be eligible for conscription in a military that no longer has a ban on women serving in combat units. The country is on its head. And of course, as I said a moment ago, we can lay the blame, a lot of the blame for this, squarely at the feet of feminists, who, by the way, are shockingly quiet as men are continuing to win beauty pageants. Turns out that the most amazing women are men. Men continuing to win beauty pageants, men continuing to use the bathrooms in women's spaces. I was just in the airport the other day in Denver, and a woman came out and said that there was a man in the bathroom there. Well, I wasn't in the bathroom when he came in, but I guarantee you, if he'd have walked in there when I was there were going to be some problems, because we shouldn't be allowing this. It's crazy to me, but because we've decided that men and women are the same and that there really are no different, even though the biological reality just screams that we're different. Here we are. This is the aftermath of the sexual revolution. And so Americans have sort of gotten away with this, quaint view that men and women are different and that they ought to have roles and responsibilities that correspond with those differences. I love this quote. I'm going to link back to it, this article today that Al Mohler linked to, was written by a guy named Denny Burke. I'd actually love to get him on the show to talk about this because I think it's really important. He says, perhaps many Americans will view the House bill as nothing more than the next stage of progress toward gender equality in our society. And he says to consider a different perspective. In 2013, Ryan Smith wrote in the Wall Street Journal about the reality that awaits women in combat. He described his own experiences as a Marine during the invasion of Iraq in 2003, when he and his fellow Marines were crammed for days into personal vehicles. This is what he wrote. The invasion was a blitzkrieg. The goal was to move as fast to Baghdad as possible. The column would not stop for a lance corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, or even a company commander to go to the restroom. Sometimes we spent over 48 hours on the move without exiting the vehicles. We were forced to urinate in empty water bottles inches from our comrades. Many Marines developed dysentery from the complete lack of sanitary conditions. When an uncontrollable urge hit a Marine, he'd be forced to stand as best he could, hold an MRE bag up to his rear, and defecate inches from his seated comrade's face. When we did reach Baghdad, we were in shambles. We had not showered in well over a month, and our chemical protective suits were covered with a mixture of filth and dried blood. We were told to strip and place our suits in pits to be burned immediately. My unit stood there in a walled-in compound in Baghdad, naked, sores dotted all over our bodies, feet peeling, watching our suits burn. Later, they lined us up naked and washed us off with pressure washers. This was Smith's experience before any shots were fired. But the worst was still ahead. Is there a father in America who would, under any circumstances, risk having his daughters exposed to this? Is there a husband in this country who thinks it's okay for his wife to risk being captured by our enemies, to risk being a prisoner of war? Is this the kind of people that we want to be? I would sooner cut off my arm than allow such a thing to happen to my own wife and daughters, and I don't think I would be alone. In countries ravaged by war, we consider it a tragedy when the battle comes to the backyards of women and children. When they fight, it is a last resort, when all other lines of defense have fallen. How could any man let a woman stand in between him and the conflict? Should we not fight to the last man before letting the war come to our wives and daughters and mothers? At the end of the day, Danny Burke goes on to say, this issue is irreducibly moral. It goes to the heart of what kind of people we wish to be. Are we really so beholden to the myths of gender theorists that we are willing to send our wives and daughters to be ground up by the rigors of a combat unit? I hope not. I hope not too. And as I've told you many times before here at the podcast, 99% of the issues that we deal with in government are moral at their root. This is a moral issue at its root. We've lost all sense. We've lost all reason when we think it's all right to conscript women into war. And as I said before, I see a resurgence, and I'm actually hopeful. I see a resurgence of women again beginning to say, no, it is a blessing and a beautiful thing to have been born female. Women have been chosen by the Lord of Heaven's armies to be able to bring new life into the world. Women should be protected as women for the nurturing of children in the culture. We are not as strong as men. We are not physically as strong as men. To pretend otherwise is absolute lunacy. I watched a video just a couple of days ago of two dudes visiting Kamala Harris in the White House. One of them, a bearded man, by the way. The guy had to be like 6.5 feet tall, bearded dude in a white dress, introducing his so-called husband to Kamala Harris. And of course, she loves it, drinks this stuff up. Our nation is in shambles because of people like this. Absolutely in shambles, because we no longer can say that men are men and women are women. So if you want to conscript women into the military, then you better be able to define what a woman is. And apparently there is no definition for these people anymore, because a woman can be a bearded man in a dress. What a shame. What a shame we're living in this country right now. It's absolutely embarrassing. This is an embarrassing time to be an American citizen. We need to bring common sense back to our government again. And I'm telling you what, it starts with God's people. The church needs to be weighing in on these things. God's people need to be using their voices. And speaking of using your voices, I've been telling you guys for a long time, and I think we're just now beginning to see the backlash of it. The federal government needs to stay out of home education. I remain, as a general rule, staunchly opposed to using government money for homeschooling. We are not socialists, you guys. The government doesn't owe you an education. It doesn't. It doesn't owe you health care. It doesn't. It doesn't owe you really anything except to provide for your freedom to make sure that our southern borders and all of our borders are free from invasion. Your government's job is to protect you, right? Not to educate you. And as soon as we bring federal money or any kind of money, state money, whatever you want to call it, into the private sector, into home education in particular, the government's going to want to put the nose of the government camel underneath the tent of homeschoolers, and good luck getting it out. Just good luck getting it out. A little known magazine called Scientific American released a newsletter last Monday calling for that. They're calling for federal government oversight and regulations to be imposed on families who homeschool. An entry into the magazine's Today in Science newsletter stated this, and I quote, "Homeschooling should be subject to some basic federal mandates because, after all, the federal government's so good at this stuff. They're so good at educating our young people. They're so good at federal oversight. The Department of Education just doing a bang-up job making sure that our students are absolutely at the top of their game when they graduate from our broken, woke public high schools. Good job, Department of Education." To me, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm telling you what, you guys, when you decide to take your finger off the steering wheel of what's happening with the education of your children, when you decide, oh, hey, yeah, we definitely do want to take the government up on that. We will give you our freedom for a little bit of money. We will give up our autonomy so that you can give us $2,300 in a stipend so that we can go buy books. We'll give it up. When you guys do that, you are risking the future that your grandchildren will not be able to be homeschooled free. That's literally, do you like what's happening in the public schools? Do you want, why do we have oversight in the public schools? I'll tell you why, because it's publicly funded. That's why. And where the public money goes, the demand for public oversight will follow. Do you guys follow me? Are you following me? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The entry also called for parents who homeschool their children, quote, be required to undergo a background check, the same as K-12 teachers, because they want to teach you who's really in charge. And they're going to treat you like criminals until you show them that you're not a criminal. Additionally, homeschool instructors, according to the article, could be required to submit documents every year to their local school district, because that's who I want to be accountable to, okay? I took my kids out of the district because I don't trust you with my kids, and I, as sure as heck, do not want to be accountable to you. You guys can't even be accountable to yourselves. Man, I hope you guys are listening. I said to someone the other day, we were talking about this at a homeschool conference I was speaking at. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, I think the handwriting's on the wall. I think that unless you guys start standing for freedom, these are freedom issues. Unless you start standing for freedom, we will lose the freedom to homeschool our children free from government interference and intervention and oversight and regulation. Because that's what you're asking for. When the government offers to give you money, whether it's in the form of a voucher or in the form of a stipend or whatever it is, what they really are after is control over you and your children. That's what this is about. And unless and until you guys wake up and figure it out, we're going to continue to go down the slippery slope. And I think we're going down the slippery slope because for generations, we have educated people in this country who are now adults and have children of their own to believe that the government is responsible for the education of children. And it simply is not true. So listen to, so the entry also claimed, and I'm quoting again, most states don't require the same assessment of homeschool kids that are required for their public school peers. Parents are not required to have an education themselves to direct instruction. And in most states, no one checks to see that the children are receiving an education at all. Which is amazing because homeschool kids repeatedly, I mean, the statistics are in. Homeschool kids are blowing their public school their public school counterparts out of the water academically. Because when parents step in and say, oh, hey, I'm going to make sure little Junior is doing his math lesson today. Oh, hey, I'm going to make sure that my kids are actually learning something that's going to benefit them as adults. Nobody cares about kids more than their parents do. In worst cases, Scientific American alleges, homeschooling can hide abuse. Yeah, you right. You right. In worst cases, homeschooling can hide abuse. And I would say the public schools are actually perpetrating abuse on children. Why don't you focus on that, Scientific American? Why don't you focus on that? Amazing. The newsletter did acknowledge that homeschooling has resulted in better optimal outcomes for many students. And yet they still want the oversight. This is what they said. Homeschooled children have gone on to win national spelling bees, and famed Hungarian mathematician Paul Erdos was homeschooled by his mathematician mother. And yet still, they want homeschooling to be federally regulated. In addition to making similar points to those conveyed in the newsletter entry, the scientific editors gave several extreme anecdotal evidences of, quote, how homeschooling hides abuse. This is what they said. In 2020, an 11-year-old boy in Michigan was found dead after his stepmother used homeschooling as to conceal years of torture. A small study of children who had been seriously abused found that 8 of 17 school-age victims were ostensibly being homeschooled. In these cases, homeschooling was a farce, a hole in the children's social safety net for abusers to exploit. Okay, listen, there's nothing funny about this, but you know what is funny? What is funny is for someone to say that homeschooling is a hole in the children's social safety net for abusers to exploit. Well, I would like to say that trans ideology is a hole in a children's social safety net for abusers to exploit. I would like to say that our public schools are filled with activists disguised as educators who are there to indoctrinate children into leftist ideology, into sexual ideology that will hurt them body, soul, mind, and spirit. And where is the Scientific American standing up in defense of children over that? It isn't about that. It's not about that. So I just want to be clear, Scientific American. We can provide you concrete evidence of kids excelling scholastically. And then we're going to say, but it could still be used to abuse children. So you better regulate it. Former public high school teacher Frank McCormick confronted Scientific American's claim that no one checks to see that children are receiving an education at all. And he said, and I quote, I love this. Well, that describes perfectly my experience in public education. In 2021, McCormick notably exposed tenets of critical race theory that were being taught in the public school system. Right? Homeschooling mother Heather Hunter pointed to the anecdotal nature of much of the magazine's article. This is what she said. This is an article written by people looking at homeschooling from the outside in. They selectively picked extreme examples for every anti-homeschooling argument. My point is, and I'm just going to say it again louder for the people in the back. By the way, there's no actual science on this stuff, Scientific America. This is about control. And money gives people control. Your tax dollars, when you say, well, those are my tax dollars, I want them back. They're going to say, fine, we're going to give them back to you, and they're going to come with strings. They are. When we inject public money into private institutions, they will require public oversight. They will. And that is the danger that we run. And I can see, the handwriting is on the wall. The handwriting's on the wall here. And I'm just going to encourage you. People like this would like to make sure that you have to go through a background check to see if you should be trusted with your own child. That's where this is headed. And if we don't stand up against it, if you guys don't start loudly making the case to help homeschooling remain free from government oversight, this will be coming to a homeschool near you. And that's all I got time for today. You guys, I appreciate you writing in. If you have a question that you would like to send to me, you can do that by going to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. Before I leave today, I'm going to answer another question from an anonymous listener in Denver who said she wants to ask me a really quick question. How old was your oldest before you left her at home to watch over your kids for a little bit? She said she's thinking about starting with 30 minutes. She said, I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 11-year-old's very responsible. I guess it just feels like I need to be extra cautious given the world that we live in. Okay, so a couple things that come to mind. First of all, I agree with you. I think you absolutely need to be more cautious. We left our children at home with our kids when they turned around 12 years old for about 30 minutes at a time. We left them with a phone, for the first couple of times that we did it. My husband and I would just literally sit out in the car in the driveway because I was too scared to go anywhere. And then we realized, oh, hey, we could put the baby down for the evening and we can pop in a movie for our kids, give them some popcorn and run down to get a cup of coffee and run back. So we always started off slow just to make sure that the kids were able to do the thing that we were asking them to do, and also make sure that the communication lines are open so your children know how to get a hold of you. But it just takes me back to what I was saying and have said now for a long, long time. The days when parents can just leave and just go, hey guys, watch TV for a couple of hours and we'll be back, are just over. They absolutely are. And you guys have heard me talk about VidAngel, and I'm going to just give them a plug again. Because we love it at the St. John House. And if I leave for a little while and my 13-year-old, for example, is hanging out with my grandsons who are 9 and 11, and they want to watch something that's streaming, we're going to say, that's fine, but you got to watch it through VidAngel. It's really easy then to let my kids sit down and watch TV without knowing, without worrying about what they're watching. So one easy button. And I appreciate it for everything that we watch on television and movies. We do all of it through VidAngel. They have over 100 filters, and they have over 20,000 movies and TV shows. And you can set those 100 filters to anything that you want to try to make sure that your kids are not exposed to profanity, to nudity, sexual content, to violence, and other kinds of garbage. It's really good to know that we get to help protect the hearts and minds of our kids when we're not around. And you will be amazed. You guys would be amazed at the kind of stuff that is actually out there right now. You'd be amazed. Go to vidangel.com/Heidi. They've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, vidangel.com/Heidi, and you can get 2 weeks for free. I hope you guys will check it out. You can watch more stuff without the bad stuff at vidangel.com. And as always, and you guys have heard me say this before, I'm going to say it again. Parents, you are the ones who are responsible for the education of your children, for the spiritual formation of your children, to make sure that if you leave them at home, they're ready to watch a younger sibling. And you do that by just doing it in increments, right? Our kids grow up in increments. We parent in seasons. And I just encourage you again, we we are living in an extraordinary time in the history of our country. We're living in an extraordinary time on 100 different levels for our kids right now. And I want to encourage you, take care of your children. Be careful what they ingest in their eyes and their hearts. Know the people that live next door to you. Understand what your kids have. If they have, I say don't give your kids smartphones at all. But if your kids have smartphones, you've got to be careful what they're listening to, what they're watching. YouTube Kids is not kid friendly. It's just a lie. And when I see people writing articles like the one I read today at Scientific American, it reminds me again that the left in this nation will never stop trying to put parents in the back seat of their kids' education and take a back seat to the state and a back seat to the school. You take the front seat. That's where you belong. You are the one. Do the hard work of parenting, you guys. Do the hard work of making sure you're not just sitting your kids down in front of the television and walking away. Because your kids come to you, their minds are like wet cement, and they ingest these things, and it makes a difference in how they see the world. So we have a responsibility before the Lord and for our children to make sure that we protect them as much as possible. I hope we can continue the conversation about women being conscripted into the military, the possibility of that happening. I hope we keep having conversations about the devastating realities of feminism and what it has done to women in this country, absolutely done more harm than good. And I hope we begin again to see our families as precious gifts from the Lord, worthy of protection. You guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. You can reach out to me directly by going to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. For the most part, a lot of my speaking season has now come to an end. I've got a few things that I'm working on, and you'll be hearing about those more in the weeks to come. But I appreciate hearing from you. Thank you for leaving reviews for the show. Those reviews really do allow us to get the podcast out to more people. And when you leave reviews, we love to read them here at the show. My staff goes through and reads almost every single one of them. And in fact, Ari left one just the other day saying that she loved the dual enrollment episode, really helpful for this new homeschool mom. It's encouraging for me to see so many of you getting off the bench and onto the battlefield, taking control of the education of your children, doing your own homework, being the best educated person in the room when it comes to things like DEI and transgender ideology. And when you are the most educated person in the room, your children become educated, and then you are able to make arguments that win over the people that are listening to you. So keep doing that, you guys. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will see you right back here again at the intersection of faith